Finally, a girl is no one.
The most dangerous student is not the one who obeys the master. It's the one who proves the master was wrong about what mastery looks like. Jaqen H'ghar smiles when Arya Stark walks out of the House of Black and White. He smiles because the cult did not lose her. The cult deployed her. Now look at the rules he supposedly trained her under. The Faceless Men only kill those they are contracted to kill. You shed your name. You become no one. Arya did the opposite of all three. She hid Needle behind a stone in the temple. She murdered Darien, a Night's Watch deserter, on her own initiative. She crossed half a continent to find Sir Meryn Trant and butcher him with personal hatred. She slit Raff the Sweetling's throat in a Braavosi brothel. Off the books, off the ledger, off the contract. Every one of those was a violation. None of them got her killed. None of them got her expelled. They graduated her. Those weren't transgressions. That was the curriculum. So why? Why did the most expensive assassins in the known world treat a broken little girl from Winterfell like a special project? Why did Jaqen H'ghar pull her out of a Riverland's cage and shape every step of her life for the next 4 years? Why did he smile, like a craftsman finishing a blade, when she walked out the door? Tonight I'm going to show you 8 pieces of evidence, buried in the books, hidden in the show, scattered across the lore, that prove Jaqen H'ghar never wanted Arya to stay in Braavos. She was never being recruited. She was being forged. Start at the beginning. The cage on the King's Road. Arya meets Jaqen H'ghar locked in an iron cage with 2 of the most violent criminals in Westeros, Rorge and Biter. All 3 pulled from the black cells of the Red Keep, the deepest dungeon under King's Landing, the place where the worst of the worst rot until the headsman has time. Nobody on the show ever explains how a faceless man, a creature who can change his face at will, who can become anyone alive, gets caught by the King's Landing City Watch. He doesn't. Not by accident. He was placed there, on purpose. And the timeline tells you why. Right before Arya finds him in that cage, a deal was being negotiated in the Red Keep. Ned Stark was going to confess on the steps of the Sept, lose his rank, and be sent to the Wall to take the Black. He would have lived. The North would have stayed home. Robert's heir would have ruled without a war. Peter Baelish needed that war. Chaos is his ladder. And there is exactly one man in Westeros with the gold, the connections, and the small council seat to know what a faceless man actually costs. Littlefinger. He sat across the table from Varys. He knew the prices. He knew the methods. The cage was the contract. Jaqen H'ghar was inserted into that prison caravan so he could be moved north with the Night's Watch recruits and kill the Warden of the North on the road. A clean death. A Lannister-blamed ambush. A war ignited without fingerprints. And then Joffrey, the most chaotic variable in the entire kingdom, walks out onto the steps of the Sept of Baelor and orders Ned Stark's head taken off in front of the city. The contract was voided in a single swing of ice. Jaqen H'ghar was now stuck in a cage, with no target, no exit, and one very specific little girl sitting 20 feet away. That wasn't fate. That was improvisation. And here's where it gets dangerous. Right before Arya escapes King's Landing, before she ever meets the man in the cage, she had another teacher. A Braavosi. The first sword of Braavos. Syrio Forel.
There is only one God, and his name is death.
And there is only one thing we say to death.
Not today.
Syrio teaches her the water dance. He teaches her to see. He teaches her that swift is better than strong, and quiet is better than swift. And then he sacrifices himself off-screen, with nothing but a broken wooden practice sword, against an armored knight and 5 Lannister guards. You never see the body. In a story where George R.R. Martin shows you the corpse of everyone, Robb, Catelyn, Ned, Joffrey, Tywin, Oberyn, you never see Syrio Forel's body. What if I told you he didn't die? What if I told you Syrio Forel did the one thing he taught Arya to do? He became no one. He used the chaos of that fight to slip away, shed his face, and reappear in the black cells of the Red Keep, wearing a different name. Look at the theology. Syrio worships one god, whose name is Death. The Faceless Men worship the many-faced god, literally, the god of death wearing every face in the world. Same religion, different vocabulary. Look at the geography. Syrio is from Braavos. The Faceless Men operate out of Braavos. Look at the timing. Syrio vanishes off-screen at the exact moment a Braavosi assassin appears in the dungeon below. Look at the affinity. Jaqen H'ghar, a cold, contractual operative of the most ruthless cult in the world, treats Arya Stark with a tenderness he extends to no one else. He saves her life. He gives her 3 deaths. He gives her his coin. He waits for her in Braavos. Why? Because he was already her teacher. Jaqen H'ghar's smile when she leaves the House of Black and White isn't the smile of a recruiter losing his asset. It's the smile of a teacher watching the student graduate. If something in your brain just rearranged, if you're already thinking about rewatching that scene, that's exactly when people hit like. Not because I told them to, because they felt it. Hi, I'm Nick, you're watching Cynic Cults, and we're just getting started. A theory like this doesn't spread because someone begged for it. It spreads because someone heard it and immediately thought of one person who needed to hear it too. If that's you right now, hit hype. That's it. That's the whole move. You already know who needs to see this. Because here's the part the Faceless Men recognized in Arya the moment they met her, and it has nothing to do with the sword. Arya Stark is a warg. Every Stark is. Bran is the most famous because he ends up in the cave with the 3-eyed raven. But Arya carries the same blood. There's a moment in the books, blink and you miss it, where Arya wakes up in the dark with the taste of blood still hot in her mouth. She wasn't eating. She wasn't fighting. Through Nymeria's jaws, hundreds of miles away, she had just run down prey and torn it apart. Those aren't nightmares. That's her mind slipping into Nymeria, her direwolf, who is now a queen of wolves leading a pack of hundreds through the Riverlands. Now keep that in your head and listen to how the Faceless Men describe their craft. When you wear a face, you don't just put on a mask. You feel the dead person. You absorb their memories. You experience their final terror. The face wears you back. That isn't disguise. That's skin changing. The Faceless Men are skin changers who use the dead instead of the living. And when Arya breaks the rules and they punish her with blindness, when they poison her sight and force her to feel her way around Braavos like a beggar, what does she actually do? She wargs into the street cats of the canal. She uses their eyes to see. The blindness wasn't punishment. It was training. It was a controlled environment to crack open her third eye. They weren't trying to erase her warging. They were trying to weaponize it. A normal Faceless Man can wear a face. A Faceless Man who is also a warg can wear a face, control an animal across a city, and assassinate a target from inside the body of a cat sleeping in their bedroom. They didn't want a drone. They wanted an apex predator. And there's one more piece of evidence that the Faceless Men knew exactly what Arya was, and it's hiding in the architecture of their temple. In the books, when Arya walks into the House of Black and White for the first time, she describes the doors. Ebony on one side, Weirwood on the other. Weirwood. The same wood the old gods of the north live in. The same wood Bran sees through. The same wood the 3-eyed raven is bound to. Weirwood doesn't grow in Braavos. It doesn't grow anywhere in Essos. Every plank of that door was imported across a continent at unimaginable expense to a temple that supposedly worships a Braavosi god. Inside the temple, the chairs are carved from weirwood. The faces of the many-faced god include a weirwood face, the face of the old gods of the north, standing right next to the stranger, right next to the drowned god, right next to the black goat of Qohor. Now look at what's happening to Arya's brother. While Arya wears a dead girl's face in Braavos and screams at the memories flooding her skull, Bran presses his hand to a weirwood root and screams at the memories flooding his skull. Watch the two scenes back to back. Same convulsion, same loss of control, same white-eyed terror. Bran is learning to enter the memory of every tree. Arya is learning to enter the memory of every face. Same magic, different interface. The many-faced god is not a Braavosi invention. The many-faced god is a name, a vocabulary. The actual entity is older. It is the network of weirwoods, the consciousness of the dead, the green dreams and the wolf dreams and the face-changing magic, all stitched together into a single web of consciousness that humans worship under a dozen names. Arya wasn't being recruited into a foreign cult. She was being awakened into her own bloodline. Now we can finally talk about that line, the one everyone misreads.
Finally, a girl is no one.
Most viewers hear "no one" and think Jaqen is saying Arya has erased herself, forgotten her family, forgotten Winterfell, become a blank. That's a misreading. No one is not amnesia. No one is not surrender. No one is mastery of the ego. It is the ability to stop being controlled by the part of you that flinches, that hesitates, that lets the wound run the blade. Look at what came right before that line. Arya was hunted by the Waif through the streets of Braavos. The Waif, who hated her, who tortured her, who beat her bloody in every training session for years. The Waif who represented every petty, fragile, vengeful, frightened impulse Arya had ever carried. And Arya lured her into a basement, snuffed out the candle, and killed her in the dark. The Waif was not a rival. The Waif was a training instrument. She was the externalized version of every weakness in Arya that would have gotten Arya killed in Westeros. When Arya kills the Waif and adds her face to the hall, she isn't killing a coworker. She is amputating her own paralyzing trauma. That is what Jaqen sees. That is what makes him smile. He looks at her and says, "Finally, a girl is no one." And what he means is, finally you are not ruled by her anymore. Finally you can pick up the sword and the name without being weakened by either. Finally the weapon is whole. And then Arya answers him with the line that confirms he was right all along.
A girl is Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I'm going home.
A bound servant of the temple would have stayed. A finished weapon walks out. He smiles because she chose correctly. And that brings us to the part of this story the show completely abandoned, and the books are quietly building toward. Why is Jaqen H'ghar in Oldtown? In the books, after Arya enters the House of Black and White, Jaqen gets a new mission. He travels across the sea to the Citadel, the most secure library in the world, where the maesters keep every text ever written, including locked vaults of forbidden Valyrian magic. He finds a novice named Pate, buys a master key off him with a gold coin, kills him, takes his face, and walks into the most restricted archive in Westeros, wearing a dead boy's skin. What is he looking for? There is a book in those vaults. It's called The Death of Dragons. It contains the only known records of how to hatch, and how to kill, the world's most powerful weapons. He isn't there by coincidence, because at the same time Jaqen is walking into the Citadel, Euron Greyjoy is sitting on the Iron Islands with a story. He says he once had a dragon egg. He says he threw it into the sea in a black mood. A throwaway line. A brag. A joke. Euron didn't throw the egg into the sea. He paid the Faceless Men with it. The Faceless Men were founded by slaves in the volcanic mines of Old Valyria. Their entire origin is built on hatred of dragon lords. Some lore even suggests they engineered the doom of Valyria itself, the volcanic apocalypse that wiped out the last dragon empire. They have spent 4,000 years hating dragons. I made an entire video breaking down how the Faceless Men actually engineered the doom, 5 buried lore clues that prove it wasn't a natural disaster. I've linked it in the iCard above and in the description. Finish this one first, then go watch that. It changes everything about this guild. And now they have an egg, and Jaqen is hunting the manual. A dragon is not a knife. You don't just point one. A dragon is a half-mad apex predator that bonds with a rider through blood and magic. Unless you have a warg. Unless you have a Stark. Unless you have a girl whose mind has already lived inside a direwolf, inside 100 street cats, and is being trained at the exact moment the egg comes into your possession. He didn't keep Arya in Braavos because Braavos was never the point. The many-faced god's longest war is not against merchants. He was building her a saddle. But the dragon isn't the only target, because there's another enemy the Faceless Men hate even more than dragon lords, and his name was carved into Arya's training from the moment she went blind. Think about what the Faceless Men actually believe. Death is a gift. Death is the only true God. Death is the peace at the end of every suffering life. Now think about who steals that peace. The Night King raises corpses out of the ground and binds them to his will forever. He turns dead men into eternal slaves. Every wight he raises is a stolen death, a soul that should have been delivered to the many-faced god, kept inside a frozen body and forced to march as a puppet. The White Walkers are the metaphysical opposite of the Faceless Men. They are slavers. And Arya's training in the temple, the part the audience always questioned, suddenly makes perfect sense. She is forced to fight blind, to navigate by sound, to move in complete darkness against an opponent she cannot see. The long night is dark. The dead are cold. Vision will fail. She wasn't being trained to kill merchants in alleyways. She was being prepared for combat against an enemy that brings supernatural blackness with him. And the Valyrian steel dagger that ends up in her hand at the most important moment of the entire saga, the same dagger that was used in an assassination attempt on Bran, the same dagger that ties back to Bloodraven and the deepest lore of the books, finds its way to her like a magnet. A Stark warg, trained in the dark, armed with Valyrian steel, released back into Westeros at the exact moment the long night begins. That isn't an accident. That's a deployment. Unless he wasn't even working for them. Here is the darkest possibility in this entire web. What if Jaqen H'ghar is not a loyal operative of the House of Black and White at all? What if he is a rogue, a defector, an asset who used Arya for his own private war? The clues are there. His Lorathi face, the two-toned hair, the foreign clothes, the impossible-to-forget appearance, is the worst possible disguise for a real Faceless Man. The entire point of the Order is to be unmemorable. Now watch the scene at Harrenhal where he changes his face in front of Arya. He doesn't peel anything off. He doesn't reach into a bag. He runs his hand across his jaw, and the features shift like water. That isn't how the House of Black and White does it. They use physical faces pulled from corpses in the hall. Jaqen is using a raw glamour, a street trick. That isn't a Faceless Man face. That's a rogue improvising without the temple's supply chain. His 3 deaths for 3 deaths deal with Arya. You stole 3 from the Red God, now you owe me 3, is not how the Faceless Men do business. They require a personal sacrifice, paid up front, equal in value to the target. Jaqen invents his own pricing. And then he goes to the Citadel. Not to a temple, not to a contract, to a library. Because deep inside the Citadel, there is a man named Marwyn the Mage who keeps a working glass candle, an ancient Valyrian artifact made of obsidian that lets the user see across continents and enter the dreams of the living. A glass candle is how you spy on Bloodraven. A glass candle is how you track Daenerys. A glass candle is how you wage a private war from the shadows. And if you're going rogue against the most powerful telepathic entity on the planet, you need an ally on the inside. You need a warg. You need someone the many-faced god claims, but who answers only to you. He didn't smile when Arya walked out because the cult released her. He smiled because his asset was finally in the field. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Out of every theory I just laid down, the Littlefinger contract, Syrio Forel hiding in a dead man's face, the dragon egg in the Citadel, Arya as the antidote to the Night King, Jaqen going rogue against Bloodraven, which one do you actually think the books are building toward? Drop your strongest argument in the comments. Convince me. I read every one. You made it to the end. That already separates you from most viewers. So I'm not going to insult you by begging for a subscribe. But if this video cracked open a character you thought you already understood, then this channel is your channel. We're building an empire of people who don't just remember scenes, they decode them. And if you're still here, you're already one of us. You know what to do. Remember when I told you the Faceless Men might have engineered the doom of Valyria? That wasn't a throwaway line. There are 5 buried lore clues that prove the most powerful civilization in history didn't collapse by accident. It was assassinated. And the guild that did it is still operating. That video is right here. And once you see what they actually did to the Dragon Lords, you'll understand why Jaqen H'ghar is the most dangerous character in this story. See you there. Until then, stay cult.